Okay, guys, it's 8 o'clock. We'll get started. I've just seen the first comments coming on the live video on Facebook already. Marg says, my eyes look mad. That's a bit harsh, Marg. I presume that's because I'm looking down at the screen rather than directly at the camera lens. So anyway, guys, welcome to the third installment of the new version of the podcast. And tonight's podcast is with Coach Faye. So good evening, Faye.
Hi, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thank you.
I already asked Faye that question about 5 or 6 minutes ago when she first came on the Zoom call, but for the sake of the podcast. So, right, rewinding, we believe, we've just checked the dates, 5 years ago tomorrow, Faye did her first coaching day session. She's to come down the previous Tuesday, decided to get started, and her journey with us would start 5 years ago tomorrow, again. But obviously there was 20-something years of Faye before that. So we'll start off, Faye. Tell us a little bit about your backstory, you before we met you.
Gosh, so I've grown up in Macclesfield. In terms of fitness and health-wise, I was quite a sporty kid. So I've got quite a sporty family, loads of siblings, massive family. So I come from quite a sporty, athletic family. So did quite a lot of stuff as a child at school and things like that. But then as soon as you leave school, I always think like what you say, like you discover beer, and I just ended up piling weight on, stopped sports altogether, and just, yeah, I think I was about 16, 17. I was working in a pub at the time, so working shifts, and just that's when the weight just started to come on. Yo-yoed until I joined the academy. So for 10 years, you did slimming clubs and stuff like that. I'd proper yo-yo as well, so I'd put 3 stone on, I'd lose 2 stone, I'd put 4 stone on, I'd lose a stone, I'd put a stone on. So it was quite big fluctuations as well. Went to uni, put even more weight on. I just always struggled with my weight. So from a late teen, right up until I joined the academy, weight was always an issue. Didn't go to gyms or anything like that. Coming down to the academy was the first time I'd really done anything like that since school. So yeah, it was always an issue for me. I was always big from 16 right up until I lost the weight with you guys. So.
What sports did you play at school?
Netball, athletics, I did taekwondo.
You're like a brown belt or something, aren't you?
Yeah, I got to brown belt. Yeah.
Any of that?
Pardon?
Do you remember any of it? If I tried to punch you, would you instinctively block it and throw me?
I might do, but I doubt it'd be a taekwondo.
So you want me to find out?
Please don't.
Cool. And then as he said, you never tried gyms. What was it about gyms that you didn't feel was worth even exploring that as an option?
The one thing they used to say to you at the slimming clubs was that the majority of your weight loss came from your food. So I was always a believer that it was my food that needed to change and not necessarily exercise. So that's what I used to tell myself. But I've always been a really shy, never had any confidence. So the thought of walking into a gym was just wasn't even a question, really. My friend, like people that were close to me, they obviously know me, but I'm really quite nervous around people I don't know. So if I'm in a group of people and I don't know anyone, I'll still feel really nervous. So I've always been quite a nervy, anxious person. Never had any confidence in my 20s and stuff. So the thought of doing that just wasn't. It didn't even enter my mind because it just wouldn't have happened. So
you tried various slimming clubs, and then what different approaches did they recommend that you tried?
Eat 10 plates of pasta and you'll lose weight.
Free food, was it, or something? Is that right?
Yeah, so it was. Yeah, I always remember, like, I'd walk in and it'd be like, oh, Faye, you've put 2 pounds on this week. And it'd be like, well, I've stuck to the plan, I have stuck to it. You mustn't have. No, I've stuck to it. Mm-hmm. Now I know that, it's not okay to eat this much pasta for every meal and, abundance of things and stuff like that. So yeah, it was.
So in terms of them not working for you, would you say that's purely down to the fact that you felt you followed it, but it didn't work, or was there something else about that general approach that you felt didn't fit for you?
Bit of both, really. You stick to it for a little bit, like anything. You stick to it that initial period where you know, the honeymoon period or whatever. I think you stick to it for that bit, but then, you know, the hard work kicks in, and you've actually, you know, now I know that I've not changed any habits, I've not learned anything, I'm not enjoying it. So that's when you just, you know, you throw the towel in almost, you just give up. You've not actually learned anything to actually change anything substantial, you know, within those deep-rooted habits that you've got, really. So that's why it was that yo-yo thing. So you do really well a little bit, and then you just stop, and then you do really well again, and then stop. So
what would those deep-rooted habits look like? So when you return back to sort of normal at that point, what would a normal days or weeks eating be like?
My meals have always been pretty good. Like, I've always loved cooking. Like, my mum taught me to cook from a really young age, so I've always loved cooking with food and stuff. For me, it would, I mean, I still are, like, I eat a lot, do you know what I mean? So my meals were always quite big, but filled up with, you know, the really energy dense foods now that I now know. So, you know, a lot of pasta and only a little bit of meat and veg and stuff like that. But for me as well, like, things like crisps and cheese, so like a massive savoury tooth. And because I work shifts in pubs, I could have my tea at, say, I don't know, 4 o'clock on my break. I'd finish at midnight and I'd be starving. So I'd come home, I'd eat a sandwich with 4 rounds of bread, 2 bags of crisps, and that'd be 5 nights a week. And that wasn't even my tea, do you know what I mean? That was just because it was early. So just really bad habits like that, really. So yeah.
Anything else you tried eating wise? You mentioned some of the slimming clubs. Did you try any of these sort of more popular diets and things like that?
I never did. It was always Slimming World. Always went to Slimming World. It was a family friend who I very first went with when I was about 17, I think. Been with different family members, been on my own, taken a couple of friends with me and stuff. It was always that one that I went to.
Where did you go for that?
So when I used to live at my mum's on the Western, so it was the one at St John's Church. I went there first, and then I went to one on the Herdsfield for a little bit as well. And then I left there. So I was there when I joined the academy. So I was at the one on the Herdsfield.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I met you, and then I came along to the academy, and I actually did Slimming World for the first 2 weeks of being on the challenge at the academy. And I remember after 2 weeks I weighed in and I was slightly off, and I was like, oh my god, I cannot fail this challenge, like, what am I going to do? When I was talking to you, and I was saying, like, oh, still doing Slimming World, and you're like, well, maybe that's what you should, you know, try and change. So I was like, all right then. So I did, and that was the end of Slimming World then.
So that's what brought Faye from essentially zero up to us meeting. Had you heard much about the academy before we met?
No, I'd seen it on Facebook a little bit. So a couple of members that were there at the time, I was friends with on Facebook. So I'd seen a couple of people checking in. Someone's still with us, actually. So she was a volunteer at my work, and she told me a little bit about it, but I'd never really paid much attention to it. I was just terrified of the thought of exercise. And again, that thought of going into a gym with all these people, it was like, not a chance. So yeah, I'd seen it on Facebook a little bit, but it was only really when I met you that I found out more about it.
So what made you decide to look further into the academy? What was it that sounded different about it to things that you considered in the past but decided weren't for you?
In all honesty, obviously when I met you at my work and you told me about it, I think it was the day of the briefing meeting, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds really interesting, I'll come along. Fully not actually thinking I'd come along. And then I thought, oh my god, I'm going to see this man again at work, and I've told him I'm going to go, I'm going to have to go. So I went, and I just remember going in, I felt physically sick. Like I said before, always quite a nervous person, and I could have cried, like almost at the stage of panic attack when I came in. It was just horrendous, I thought, you know, when I came in, but I did. And I just remember sat in that briefing meeting, and I was sat next to a lady, I can't remember who she was now, and she was just as nervous. We swapped numbers, and I always remember what I wrote on the form. You know, when you write in there's a box, why should you do it? Why should we pick you, or whatever it says. And I remember writing in it, because I will lose that £20. I will be part of that 100%. And I remember writing that in it, and just something in me that night, I was like, oh my God, I've got to do this. I've just got to do it.
Okay, cool. Just rewinding a step there. So Faye and I originally met through, I volunteered for maybe like 4 or 5 months or something like that. Just drop in the charity that Faye works at, helping, I don't know how to describe it, listen to young people who wanted to come in, and I would just be there as an ear. I didn't have any actual experience directly in that field, but it was something that they felt was useful. I did that for however many months it was, until I think we changed the shifts around. I think I did it on Monday afternoon, and it was at 3 till 5, but then I changed, so I was taking the evening session on a Monday from, I had to be in for like 4:30, so with that finished, but we got Faye out of it, so that was good. So he came down for the briefing meeting, decided to get started, and by the sounds of it, some sort of switch flicked pretty much straight away. You then have, 5-6 days before the coaching day, before people get started. What thoughts and feelings and everything went through your head in that time?
I was so excited. Like, I remember just being like, oh, this is so, because I'd never done anything like this before, and just seeing the videos and hearing everything at the briefing meeting, I was like, oh, just can't wait to get started. But again, terrified. I'm thinking you're going to be the biggest person there, the unfittest person there, because obviously I've not done any exercise. I thought everyone would be this, like, you know, idle gym perfect person, and then there'd just be like little old me that's like, I'd never picked up a weight. Honestly, I couldn't do anything. I could not do any form of exercise. So I was terrified. I was excited. I didn't own any gym clothes or trainers or anything, so I had to go get some stuff. So the
majority of people watching this will know you from probably their members of the academy, but the people who don't, what did you weigh at that point, if you don't mind me asking?
So just before I joined, my heaviest, I was 15 stone 12. So just shy of 16 stone. No idea kilos.
So you got started, came down for your first coaching day, and then you obviously mentioned you continued the Slimming World diet side of it for the first couple of weeks, but in general, how were your first few weeks as a member?
I found them challenging, just in the sense of being in a place where I didn't know anyone. So that's always been a big obstacle for me. And I know that I have to be out of my comfort zone in order to achieve something. So that was the biggest thing. And I remember being in sessions thinking, I'm rubbish. I can't do it. I just can't do any of this. I'm terrible. But, you know, you get the somebody next to you would be like, oh, you can't, do this, do that, you can do this, or a coach would come along and be like, oh, change this, change that. So you got these little like seeds of reassurance. So when I was thinking that everyone was staring at me and that I was so bad and everyone would be laughing at me, you just get these little seeds of reassurance from people that made you think, okay, I can come back on the next planned session or whatever. And then obviously by the time you leave, you're buzzing, your endorphins are kicking. And yeah, that's what made you you'd have fun, and that made you want to come back for the next session. So they were challenging the first few weeks. Like, it was I had to really push myself to come. But when you were there, that was, it was a no-brainer. It was a welcoming, friendly environment. When everyone kind of just took you under the wing, really. So.
Who was coaching at that point? Presumably it was myself, Matt, presume Tony. Was Kirsty coaching? Andy hadn't quite started, had he?
I was there for Kirsty's first session. Just started, coaching when I did. And Andy, that was it.
Andy, I can tell you when Andy started, because it was the day I got married. Andy's first sessions by himself were on my wedding day, which was June the 12th, 2015.
Yeah.
So cool. So that's your first few weeks. You continued with one of your ways of eating before until we kind of realised that wasn't working out for you, and you made then some changes. What changes did you make at that point to your eating?
After the first couple of weeks? Yeah, so I just sat Slimming World off and watched the videos that you guys had. You used to have that little table, because it was, the principle was just eat real food. Thinking about portion sizes, I always remember the hands. So you do like, your carbs, your protein, and your fats, and your cuts. So like they were the the simple things, if not too simple at first, because you're like, you know, no plan, no this, no that. Like, it really was that simple. And yeah, just, you know, learning a little bit more about food and you know, what would fill you up, what would satisfy you. After, like I said, I always like cooking, so that wasn't the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you went then a little bit off the pace to presumably fairly quickly catching up, because you passed the challenge fairly comfortably, didn't you? Was it 23-4 pounds your first challenge?
It on my first one.
22 in your first one, yeah. So presumably you knew with at least a handful of days to spare coming to the end of that you were going to get there?
Yeah.
And how would you sort of summarise that whole first 8 weeks? The Faye that walked in the door on day one versus the Faye 8 weeks later? What changes and what happened there?
God, I was on like cloud nine. It was amazing. I just couldn't believe I'd done it. I felt so pleased, you know, that I'd actually done it. And even like the little changes, so like little exercises that you couldn't do at first. So I always remember like any version of a plank was just like, oh, I just couldn't get, I just couldn't do it. And I always remember trying to do side planks. Just couldn't hold my own weight up. I had no strength. I was obviously that heavy. I just could not hold my own weight up. So the little wins, when you actually can, you know, you can hold an exercise for 2 seconds longer, it's like, yes, I've achieved something. So I just actually started to feel, you know, a little bit proud of myself, I suppose. I'd lost the weight. I could start to, you know, could do some exercises. I'd made some friends. So I think by the end of the first 8 weeks, that's when I'd kind of settled into that 7 a.m.ers club and had all those, like, you know, mother figures around me and stuff. So it was, yeah, I just felt really proud of myself, really did. And dying to keep going. I was like, oh my God, you know, I can go again and again and again. So, yeah.
So although obviously it is a different approach, obviously there's exercise in there and lots of different things, what would you say fundamentally was different from your perspective that really made this work, and clearly something clicked in your head? Why was that?
Not one thing stands out. I do think it's a mixture of everything, and I think for me as well, like, because I was so unhappy and I had zero confidence, and I guess I knew what I had been. So when you got a little bit of a taste of what you could be like, there was no way I was going back to that. Do you know what I mean? There was no way that, you know, I would sacrifice those achievements and those gains that I'd made to go back to how I was feeling before. Like, and I know I will never do that again, even though, you know, you do have ups and downs and stuff, but there is no way that I'd do that I'd go back to that place, really.
Speaking of ups and downs, would you say there were any particular downs in that first 8 weeks, or was it generally up to start with?
I'd say the only downs were what I put on myself. So like, I put a lot of pressure on myself. So if, you know, like with an exercise, if I couldn't do it, I had to have to, you know, try not to put myself down about it. So they were the only downs, really, is anything that I'd put on myself. But overall, no, it was, you know, it was just up for me.
So that was challenge number 1, and then were you straight into challenge number 2? Was it 2 in a row, or was there a gap?
There was a gap then for 2 months. So okay. I had a 2 gap, and I actually put a little bit of weight back on. It was over summer, and then I was like, what am I doing? Like, get that weight off and get another challenge done, you know? And that was it.
Why would you say that happened in month 3 and 4?
When I put a bit of weight back on.
Why would you say that happened?
I'd achieved the challenge and I thought, oh, that's great, I've done it, I'm still going to go. I think you just get a little bit relaxed when you don't have that pressure, so that, not pressure, but when you have that time frame, and then obviously the free, you get your money back, having that incentive was massive for me. You know, if someone's saying, oh, you can get this for free, well, damn right, I'm going to do everything I can to get it, you know. So that was a big incentive. It was the 2 months that I'd put a bit of weight back on was over summer, so I had like lots of weddings, holidays, and I suppose really I'd taken the focus off what I was trying to achieve, and you know, people call it a plateau, I suppose, don't they? But it wasn't necessarily, I don't see it as a plateau, I just see it as, well, actually all that learning that I'd had over the first 8 weeks, I kind of just put it to the side and thought I'm just going to go enjoy myself a little bit. Now I know that actually it's not one or the other, it's a mixture of both. So
I do find in general, whilst I love the challenge and it's been responsible for the start of so many fantastic journeys, it is to some degree a double-edged sword. Having that great focus helps get people off to a brilliant start, and if we can transition then into something more longer term, that's awesome. But I do know for some people, they then almost kind of struggle more having come off a challenge than they perhaps would have done from the start if there was no challenge. So I think we're pretty good at it.
Actually, I remember at the beginning when I first signed up, I thought I'm just going to do this for 8 weeks and then go, all right, get my money back and go. And that's what I thought. But actually, when you're there for 8 weeks and you see what it is, and, you know, it's not just about the exercise and about the food, it's everything else beyond that. And that's then what I was like, God, I'm part of something. Like, I feel, you know, I feel like I belong somewhere. So obviously I never left. So.
That's the thinking, you see. People often ask me about the challenges as a general approach, and part of it is having a way to get people to commit to do 8 weeks from the start, because I generally find most facilities approach, which is either a free week or a free session, is kind of the optimum amount to put people off, especially after one session. You're really sore, you're really confused, don't look or feel any different, and whilst you may continue because you think this soreness must be doing some good, like I said, it's kind of the right amount to put people off. I think after 8 weeks, you've got your head around everything, at least to a very reasonable degree. You look and feel quite different. You know, you're sore in a good way, not so sore that it's off-putting. And hopefully, like you did, you decide you want to continue.
Yeah.
So then we did challenge number 2 in months 5 and 6. Why would you say that then you decided to do it again?
Why not? I'd enjoyed everything about the first 8 weeks. It had got me results. And for the first time, I actually saw that it could be life-changing, that it wasn't just to do it and, you know, it wasn't continuing that up and down, that yo-yo pattern. It was actually, you know, my life could change here. I could actually make some massive changes and not go back. So go for it. So I did.
And then what changes then happened between sort of months 3, 4 into 5, 6 to take it back to forward progress?
Going back to everything that you learned, you know, back to basics, people call it, really. So talking to the coaches, looking at the videos again, actually getting back to normal, you know. The way I see it now, those first 8 weeks were the first 8 weeks of the rest of my life. What, you know, I eat now how I ate in them first 8 weeks, really. And actually realising that, you know, putting things into my body and treating my body properly is so much more rewarding and has such a big impact on how you feel about yourself that, you know, why would you kind of jeopardise those things? So it wasn't anything different that I did in months 5 and 6 or whatever it was. It was just more of continued of what it was at the beginning, if that makes sense.
That then another 20, was that 23, 24 pounds, that one, was it?
On the second one.
How many, sorry?
21,
right, cool. So you're then 43 pounds or whatever down. And then was it straight into the Beachbody Challenge at that point?
Straight into that one.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, the Beachbody Challenge is to get basically that last X amount of body fat off. So for a woman, it's to get down to 16 to 21% body fat and lose 5 percentage points. For a man, it's to get down to between 10 and 15% and lose 5 percentage points. The 5 percentage points is just...
When I did it, it was
hit 10 and 16, wasn't it, still then, yeah?
16 for when I did it, yeah.
Yeah, the 5 percentage points, just for anyone that doesn't know, the point of that is if someone is, say, 16.1 and drops to 15.9, that's fantastic, and I'm really pleased for them, but it's not really a success story as such to share with the world and make it so that it's win-win enough for it to be free. So you drop down at that point from what, 20-ish% body fat to 16-ish, 15 something, was it?
don't even remember what I was to start with, because I was actually going for a third £20 challenge. So I was wanting, body fat meant nothing to me at that time. It was pounds. So I was going for another £20 challenge, and I was slightly off pace again. And you said to me, I think it was about a week before, you said to me, well, you're not far off the Beachbody challenge. And I was like, oh, right, okay, what's this? So that's when I looked at it, and I can't remember what I was at the start of it, but I got down to 14.9 on those scales.
Wow.
At the end of the
For anyone as well who wonders, because we do have people sometimes come down to the briefing meeting and say, I'm not sure if I've got £20 to lose. It kind of doesn't really matter, as happened with you there. It's whichever comes first. So the approach, the method, the way of doing it is the same. So if someone at the end of 8 weeks has dropped 5 percentage points and is down to 16, 18% or what have you, then brilliant. That was the Beachbody challenge. If they've dropped £21 but are still 22%, then that was clearly a £20 challenge. It doesn't really make a difference. And the idea with having those two challenges there is to have something in place to kind of reward, to help people all the way along the journey. So wherever they start, well, if they're a stone overweight, 10 stone overweight, they can in theory do challenges all the way down to what you might call a Beachbody. You don't have to. People sometimes decide along the way that actually I've got to this weight, this percentage body fat or whatever it is, and I'm pretty happy staying there. But it's something to incentivize along all steps of the journey if people want it. So at that point, then you've been a member 8 months, and you've dropped how many pounds altogether?
I say 65 for £65 in total. It was, I think, but obviously that was after a little bit more. So I can't remember at the end of the 8 months how much it was. Maybe like £58 or something. It was just shy of.
Sure. And you'd only paid for 2 months membership at that point as well, which is good. That's what we want. In theory, I want everyone to pass the challenge, because the more people that pass it, the more they tell their friends and family, the more success stories are to share with the world. And invariably, most of them stay on and then become paying members. You know, we do make it really clear right from the start that while someone can cancel after 8 weeks, that's not really what it's all about. If someone's intending to definitely just stop after 8 weeks, there's a short-term quick fix and they intend to go back to old habits, it's not really for them. It's designed as it was for you to be the best possible start to the rest of your life. So you get to that point, and that's you then, obviously your body's changed an amount over the last 4 and a bit years and what have you. That's the majority of your journey, definitely from a weight loss perspective. What then were months 9 onwards like?
Just amazing. I just absolutely loved it. You know, my life had totally changed in those 8-9 months. I'd grown in confidence. I felt like I was a better person. My work improved. I went back to uni, and I felt, you know, I genuinely feel like the changes I'd made and losing the weight and the impact that had had on me just totally changed my whole life, really. My outlook on life, you know. Like, became such a happier person, always looking on the bright side, very optimistic. I felt like I was better at, you know, in my job. Obviously, I've got to support a lot of people. I feel that I'm able to do that better. So looking after myself and, you know, creating this new life for myself, I was able to then support other people better. So, and it was a no-brainer then. The academy was just part of my life, you know. I'd come to 5-6 sessions a week. I'd got friends there. It was part of my routine. Like, there was no way that it was ever going to go there, and that was it. It was just embedded within my life.
Any downsides to the changes you made there? It all sounds very positive, but anything you missed, anything that you kind of harked back to the old days, anything that was generally less than positive?
Not really. I mean, obviously you have, you know, there are times where, you know, things are difficult, and I'm at, you know, I've had within that time, so I have had phases where I've put a bit of weight back on, usually linked to something that's going on emotionally or personally or something. So my comfort always was food, and still is food. So there have been times over that over the last few years where something might have been happening, my comfort has been food again, and I have put a bit of weight back on or something, but not to the extremes that it would have been before. You know, it's always got to a point where I've been like, what am I doing? Like, why have I put this weight back on? Why are you sat here eating crisp sandwiches?
I was just about to ask you what comfort food looked like.
Crisps and cheese, like literally a block of cheddar cheese cut into wedges with, so I couldn't, you know, having one slice of cheese and one bag of crisps would be all right. For me, it was 4 bags of crisps and 4 massive slices of cheese. I'd literally just eat crisps and cheese.
I've never been massively bothered by crisps. They're nice, I like them, but cheese is perhaps one thing that if I were able to click my fingers and by magic change in the way I eat, being able to eat lots and lots of cheese would be awesome. I have an amount, and I have an amount that keeps me within maintenance in my case, but I would in theory like to have a lot more, but it's very easy to overdo, unfortunately, isn't it?
Definitely.
So that takes you then into sort of 2016-ish. You became a coach then in 2017, didn't you?
Yes.
Anything particularly happen in that sort of year period in between? You'd got to a point where it was still generally forward progress, like losing a little bit more weight. How would you sort of summarise that period?
Just plodding along, really. Like it was just it genuinely was just part of my life. Nothing stands out that happened significantly in that time. I just continued to be part of the academy, and you know, I love people. Like I love working with people. That's obviously my job, and now obviously it's what I do at the academy. Like I just love people. My degree's in psychology. I just love people. So when new people would come into the academy, I'd like talking to them as well, and I'd instantly connect with people and think that was me, or you know, and just to give comfort to people and to, you know, just to help other people and to make sure that everyone else is okay. That's who I am as a person. So it was just. Did
you were doing an amount of that before you actually became a coach, still as a member?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do. I think I would say I was doing that, and it was part of that. You know, the 7 a.m. group was like a little family to me, and you know, made some great friends with the people that were there, and that still are there. So yeah, it was just. You know, it was just continuing progress, really.
Cool. So then at some point, and I would say probably early 2017, I remember I was having a chat in a session about the potential of you becoming a coach. Was that something you'd considered before? I can't remember exactly how the conversation went.
Well, because I remember when Bernie, who trained up with Bernie? Who was it that trained up with Bernie? Can't think of it was.
So that would have been late 2016, would that have been?
Yeah. Irving. Might have been Irving. So, well, I remember when Bernie trained up to be a coach anyway, and I thought I'd seen that it was a member that trained to be a coach, and I thought, oh, maybe that's something I could do. And then I was like, oh, I don't know. Them seeds of doubt, you know, where I'm not confident, putting myself down, thinking, oh no, you couldn't do that. And then I remember you saying to me like, oh, would you ever be interested? And I was like, yeah, I would actually. So, and that was it then. So just looked into it and started studying.
Yeah, so you did your course. Who did you do your course with? I forget now.
Oh God, they've gone bust now. What they were called?
Finish them off, did you?
Discovery Learning.
Right, I didn't know they'd gone bust. I don't particularly pay attention to the training providers, but right, okay.
Discovery Learning, and then I've just done my level 3 with Lifetime.
So have you finished your level 3 now, and you approaching finished? Is that completely
done?
Have you had the results back? It's completely signed, sealed, done?
I've passed. I've just not had my certificate because of obviously what's happened. So yeah, that's done. So signed, finished. Yeah.
Awesome. So you started then coaching. So would that have been around May, June 2017, something like that?
Yeah, May. In fact, my first session was in July.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. And how did you find that process of starting as a coach?
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Just thinking, oh my God, all these people are going to be staring at me, listening to me. And again, thinking, thinking, oh my God, they're just not going to think I'm good enough. Like, all these members that have been here for a while, like, they're going to think I can do better than her. What's she doing? She's rubbish. Constantly casting seeds of doubt over myself, which is, if you haven't guessed, what I do. But everyone's there to hold your hand through it, really, I suppose. And actually, you know, if you get your first session under your belt and you're dead excited and you're enjoying it, and you realise that I suppose it's the same as when you start as a member, that all those preconceptions you've got, they're not true, they're just what you're imagining, really. And yeah, then my confidence just grew as a coach then, and continues to grow as time goes on.
So during the time we've known, you've done a number of things that you clearly had doubt at over the time, and maybe insecurities and were unsure about doing. And I think that would be great for a lot of members to hear, because I think when you're a member, you kind of assume that fit pros are always uber confident, perhaps always been good at sport at school. Wasn't the case. Well, actually, you were good at sport at school. I wasn't. But not always been in shape, and they've had their own journeys of getting to that point when the member or potential member first season. So you kept going despite the doubts and the unsurety. Why would you say that was, and what might you say to someone who is feeling a similar way? Not even necessarily about starting at the academy or becoming a coach, but just in general, they're unsure, they're apprehensive, they don't know if they can do it, whatever it is.
A few things just came into my mind then. So one thing I've learned is that you have to be out of your comfort zone to make changes. So, you know, you've got to push yourself, and it is uncomfortable. And, you know, still to this day, if I'm in a new situation, I will still get those feelings. You know, I will get really anxious, and, you know, it's not nice, but I think in order to achieve something, you've kind of got to push yourself into them situations of where you are uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
There was something else I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was now. What did you ask me again? Ask me a question.
The kind of advice you might give to someone else who's in a similar situation of doubt, insecurity, being unsure about something.
There was a really good point I was going to make then. I can't remember what it is. It'll come to me in a minute. And the advice would be to just do it. So what if it does go wrong? What's the worst that's going to happen? Like, one thing I learned as well is, like, you know, all those feelings that you do have, they're okay. They are feelings. Like, you have to acknowledge and accept them. You shouldn't try and ignore them. You shouldn't try and push them away and, you know, pretend they're not there. You have to, you know, feelings of anxiety, feelings of, you know, low confidence, all those things, that's okay. Like, sit with it for a little bit and then think, okay, logical, what should I do to try and work through this? How, you know, if I want to be in a different place, how am I going to get there? Can I do it on my own? Do I need the help of someone like a coach at the academy or whatever? So what if it goes wrong? Trial and error, you know, what's the worst that's going to happen? Yeah, you might feel a bit uncomfortable, you might get a bit upset, you might, whatever it might be, but from that you can take learning and then try again, you know. Of
course, and ultimately the only way that it ever then gets easier, they ever get good at it, is by doing it, you know. And one thing a big realization for me many years ago now is that all else being equal, you get the same results, the body responds the same way, things happen the same way, all else being equal, irrespective of how you feel. You can still do it nervous, you can still train when you can't be bothered, you can still eat better when you don't feel like it, and you get the same results. So not only do you feel like it then more, you gain the experience, the confidence, the knowledge, whatever it is, but actually the results still keep on coming. You know, it's nice to feel a certain way about something, it's nice to feel motivated, it's nice to feel up for it, but it is ultimately just a nice to have. And if we sit around waiting for those things to happen, motivation may come and find us, confidence may come, but realistically they only come by going out there and getting it.
Yeah.
So you've been a coach now for 3 years. How in general, what's your overall experience of that?
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. You know, getting to support other people on their journey, meet some amazing people, hear some fantastic stories, just listening to people, like, you know, like I said before, I don't see this as a job. My actual job is, even though it is a job, it's part of who I am, is to help other people. So the fact that I get to do that, it's fantastic. And knowing my own journey, you know, I love being able to share that, but also to just, you know, support people to find their own journey as well. So I absolutely love being a coach. I don't see it like a job, you know. That's why, you know, I've studied again now, and I see, you know, this for the rest of my life, as part of my life. I don't see it like, you know, oh God, I'm paid to do this or whatever. It's part of who I am now. So yeah, I absolutely love being a coach.
Any downsides to being a coach, maybe other than getting up early?
Getting up earlier, you get used to that. Downsides to being a coach? I don't think so. Not that I can think of.
Any particular highlights of your time as a coach, either kind of what you've done directly, or perhaps member experiences, successes that you feel you played a part in? What are the highlights of the last 3 years from a coaching perspective?
Oh gosh, I need time to think about this. I suppose, I mean, I won't share certain people's things, but you know, there are a few members that I feel like I've been able to build a good connection with, and they've confided in me about things, and I feel like I've been able to support them with things, not necessarily in relation to you know, food or fitness, whatever it is. So I feel like I've been able to support a few people to really get some help that you know, they may have needed. There's loads of successes. The person that sticks in my head recently is Mark Bowers. Like, I just think the picture he put up the other day, like his transformation, every time he puts a picture up, I'm like, oh my God, he just looks so different,
isn't it? Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's a recent person. I just think, oh my God, he's just done amazing. Like Janet, I've loved being part of Janet's story. You know, so many people, like, just, yeah.
Well, I find often the ones almost that hit home the most are perhaps the ones that aren't necessarily a visual transformation. They don't necessarily pass a challenge, get a before and after picture, but when we know some of the journeys they've been through, and some of the messages I've received over the last couple of months of life, it's not far from a daily basis. I've got a tear in my eye. After Rise yesterday, I had a couple of particular ones through. Over the years, without exaggeration, probably had best part of 20 people say that if they hadn't have discovered the academy, they would have killed themselves. And when you get a message like that, you're like, holy shit, wow. I mean,
like people share their stories with you. It's not just about the fitness and, you know, losing weight and things like that. It's the other stuff that comes along with it that we might not necessarily share. Like you said, you've received them messages. I've got a couple of pieces of feedback from two members. Again, I don't really recognise the impact I have on other people. I just do it. But I've had two messages recently off people, and both of them have been like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like both made me a little bit upset, where I was like, it feels so good to actually have had an impact on somebody's life, which I wouldn't necessarily normally put down to myself. I just think that's part of the academy. But yeah, so I won't share who they are just in case they want.
Yeah. So in that time as well, obviously, you've done a number of Born Survivors. What year was your first Born Survivor?
Green t-shirt.
2016. So you've been a member bang on a year at that point, hadn't you? They just changed to May in 2016. So it's exactly a year you've been a member. How did you feel about that beforehand?
I didn't think I'd be able to do it at all. I thought, I'd done my challenges and stuff, but even still I was like, oh my God, this is huge, it's massive, I'm not going to be able to do it, it's going to be terrible. Two of my friends came and did it with me as well, who weren't members, and absolutely loved it. Honestly, I could have done it twice. When we got up that thing at the end, I could have done it again, hands down could have, because I enjoyed it that much. It was brilliant. Yeah.
So obviously we're no Born Survivor, well, supposed to be this weekend, supposed to be yesterday. Potentially might be one later this year, more realistically looking at next year. For anyone that either listens to this now or listens to this a bit nearer the time and perhaps has concerns or is unsure whether Born Survivor is something they might like to have a go at, what might you say to them?
oh, just do it. Like, it is for anybody. It doesn't matter how fit you are. It doesn't matter, you know, how heavy you are, how light you are. You're part of a team, and it's the team that gets you around. And it's, you know, it's one of the highlights for me that stuck out during my academy journey is doing Born Survivor, and the feeling you get when you cross that finish line is just incredible. And the team gets you around no matter what. So just do it.
Awesome. So you did that one, then the even bigger team the following year, there'd be 164 in 2017. And then another big thing you've got into relatively recently, but it's been a few years now, is powerlifting. So before we get into your powerlifting journey, what would Faye of 5 years ago have thought about future Faye being a powerlifter?
Oh, she'd have laughed in your face. She'd have just been like, what? What's that? Don't think so. Yeah.
How did that start?
So it started, it was, what month are we in now? May. So coming up for 2 years ago, I guess. It was Vicky, who was a member and then a coach. She'd been doing it for a little bit. And she kept saying, like, go on, give it a try. And then Bernie was doing it as well. So I kept seeing Vicky and Bernie doing it, and a few other people doing it. And I thought, oh, you know, should not, what, I don't know, what is it? Again, that's, you know, cast of doubt, no confidence, I'm not going to be any good. And then I didn't start doing it. I just bit the bullet and entered a competition. I thought, just enter, because it was at the academy. The competition was at the academy in September, I think it was. So I just went home that night after talking to Vicky, and I just entered. And then the next day I was talking to you, and I was like, what have I done? Oh my God, what have I done? And I was like, well, I've entered now, so I might as well try and train for it. So then I had 8 weeks running up to it, where I trained with Vicky and Bernie and Matt did a little bit of a core, like some extra sessions on it. And I've never ever felt nerves like it. Like, it was just sick.
On the day, is that, or in the whole run up to it, or both?
Like the week before and then on the day. So like really close to it. It was like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? I don't want to do it. Like wanting to, you know, come up with an excuse to not do it. But again, and you know, like what I said before, what's that saying? No growth in comfort, or whatever. Is it Ant Middleton that says that?
Yeah.
I just knew that I had to push through it and just do it.
So you said a great question there. Why were you doing it? What would you say appealed to you? Why did you decide to give it a go?
I liked lifting weights in the GTP sessions. I loved using like dumbbells and stuff, and I always listened to what coaches said, and you know, like progressive overload and stuff. I always thought I'm going to push myself a little bit further, and I quite often had noticed that I was the person in the GTP session with the heaviest set of dumbbells. You know, there could have been 24 people, a mixture of men, women, different shapes and sizes, and I'd be there with the heaviest dumbbell pressing it, and I'd be like, oh, maybe I am maybe I've got a bit of strength. Like, so I always got a little bit of enjoyment and satisfaction, and just the way it felt to do that. And then when I learned the 3 lifts, it was like, oh God, this feels really good doing this, and actually seeing your progress. It just set something off for me again, I think, like it did when I first joined the academy. So
You clearly like doing things in 8-week blocks. That seems to be the magic number for you.
Oh yeah, no. Never noticed that, actually.
So obviously then you come to your first powerlifting competition. What was that as a day, as an experience like?
It was terrifying, I'm not going to lie. It was terrifying, but it was fun. It was friendly. The people were just incredible. I obviously had like Vicky, Bernie, Matt and a few other people there on the day. But the BPU that come and host the competition, they were just amazing. People in the audience. Obviously it was at the academy, so it was a little bit nice to have familiar faces there. And I just absolutely loved it, you know. Achieving something like that was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I've done it. I think I cried, actually. Did I cry? I cried because I failed my last squat on my first competition. So I cried. I just walked up to Matt and cried, and he was like, didn't know what to do. But then did well on my bench press and my deadlift, and I was like,
what sort of numbers you were doing back then?
so for my squat, I think it was 80 kilos in my first comp. For my second lift, my bench, I got 60, and for my deadlift, I think I got 115.
Okay, that's good for a first comp, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you win a medal that day?
Yeah, I think everyone got a medal. I think it was one of them where
Only so many people enter per category or what have you, but you beat all the millions of, well, however many hundreds of thousands of people that could have entered that category in theory.
Yeah, true.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you've done numerous powerlifting competitions since, and you're now the proud owner of a 130 kilo deadlift.
Yeah.
130 kilos. That's phenomenal. What do you weigh now?
I don't actually. I'm around about 70 kilos. Just say 70.
You're not far off double body weight deadlift.
The goal for this year. Yeah,
Wow.
it's 40 deadlift. But in like, and it's good, and I feel, I'm pleased with it. But in terms of like, so like in the powerlifting world, it's not really that good. But like, it's, I can't even describe, like, I know how far I want to go in powerlifting now, do you know what I mean? So I had about 6 months where I didn't really do any after the competition last year. I was like, oh, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to give it up. I'm not very good. I hadn't enjoyed the competition that I'd gone to with Bernie. And then that whole attitude was just like, what are you doing? Like, you love doing this, keep going. And now it's like, I see where I want to go in powerlifting, do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's exciting.
It's funny you're saying there about your numbers not being particularly great in the powerlifting world. They clearly are for your category. It's just perhaps you're comparing yourself to someone who is in a different category and therefore going to be getting different numbers. And I think as well for a lot of people, when they see some of the numbers, particularly like the world's strongest men and Thor yesterday with his 501 kilo deadlift, that's perhaps what they perceive powerlifting to be like. Massive grunting men
Definitely.
lift crazy heavy weights. And whilst there's an element of that, as you said, there's a mixture, there's a variety. From my experience, I've not entered any comps, but I've been there at several of them, all nice, welcoming, just normal people.
Definitely, yeah. And it takes, like with powerlifting, like, you can't really compare yourself to other people. You have to go on your own journey with it because you are where you are, and it doesn't matter what other people are getting. You're doing it for yourself, really, and you set yourself targets. I've got my targets for this year, and I know I'm going to give it 110% to get them targets. And, when I get them, because I know I will, it's just going to be amazing. And then I'll have new targets for next year. And it takes time. Like, you can't just expect to think, right, I'm going to get, say for my deadlift now, I can't just think about, I want a 200 kilo deadlift. Well, I might have that in a few years' time, but you've got to go on a journey to get there. You've got to put the work in to get it. So yeah, it's just, you've got to stick with it and keep going.
So if you look back, did you say your first comp 2 years ago, you did 110 deadlift? Is that right?
15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when you look at it, that's 15 kilos over 2 years. And I'm sure if we'd have said 2 years ago, your deadlift will improve by 15 kilos in 2 years, you would perhaps potentially been not disappointed with that, but you might have thought.
Deadlift's not a good example. I have a love-hate relationship with deadlift, so that's not a good example. So I progressed more in the last 6 months in my deadlift than I did 18 months before that. Okay. Like, I didn't have any progress for about a year with my deadlift. So it's, it's the lift out of the 3 lifts. It's the one I struggle with the most. It's the one that I'm probably worst at technically, but it's the one that I work hardest on because I know I've got a lot to improve on. So yeah, probably I didn't improve for about a year on my deadlift. It's been the last 6 months where I've, it's started to improve. So
I think there's definitely a temptation in the human mind to look at the distance to go, to look at how much more the people can lift, or how much faster they are, or leaner they are, or how much more money they earn, or how much further on we might perceive them to be in life, and to feel that gap is insurmountable, and therefore actually not to do anything with it. Whereas all we can really do is narrow that gap and work towards it and keep doing those things that will get us closer. And like I said, it's our own journey. The only options are stand still, move forward, or move backwards. And when you look at it that way, moving forward is clearly the best option.
Yeah.
So that's your journey then as a powerlifter. One last thing, actually, you were saying last night on the post-Rise social event we had on Zoom last night, you, Jamie and Lee have now got a little, not competition, an agreement, is that the right word?
Yeah, a challenge for ourselves, a goal.
So Thor Hathor, Julius Bjornsson yesterday broke the deadlift world record of 501 kilos. His warm-up was 440, was it?
420, I think.
420, and your initial target is to get to 420 between the three of you. Is that what your plan is? Yeah. So I don't think you'll be far off that at the moment. So between you is 140 each. You're on 130. I think Lee's on 152 and a half, I think. So you're pretty much there already, I think. I'm not entirely sure what James is, but it's...
I think we're there already. I think we need to get to the 501 by the end of the year. So that's what I'm saying. Jamie and Lee made.
That feels doable. So let's say you get to your 140. That leaves them 361 between them. Okay. It's a challenge, but like I said, that's the idea.
Exactly, yeah. Something to work towards.
I did point out last night that one of the ways you could definitely beat Thor is supposedly he has, is it 12,000 calories a day? Is that right?
1,000 calories a day.
Yeah, so I reckon you guys could get to that total deadlift on less calories than him, is my prediction. I think between you, you'd eat less than that between the three of you and potentially match his deadlift. So, have you seen his challenge Eddie Hall to a boxing match? Or there's some talk of it?
Yeah, he's accepted Eddie Hall, so he's going ahead of...
I saw the acceptance first, actually, because I missed the actual deadlift and his challenge, whatever you call it, yesterday. I saw Eddie's acceptance today, so that'll be interesting. I do smell what in the wrestling world they call a work. I think potentially a bit of a agreement between each other as a way to generate a bit of extra income, shall we say, but we'll see. Yeah. Well, that's fine. It's a bit like when Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor had their fight, but they got the same jet. They shared a jet back from one of the press conferences.
Yeah, that's all it is, yeah.
Cool. So that kind of give or take brings us up to date. So you posted a picture, actually, I saw a couple of hours ago on Instagram of you 5 years ago versus you today. And obviously that's a significant physical change. But from what you've been saying today, obviously there's a lot more to it than that. And again, it's kind of a double-edged sword, I think. We get a lot of success stories and it's really powerful to be able to share them in a before and after type picture. And that's part of the reason we've continued to get enough business to keep the academy going, because we've got that reputation for helping people get results. But again, it's only showing part of it, only showing the physical surface. How, in general, would you sort of summarize the last 5 years, the journey of Faye over the last half decade?
Life-changing. Like, I know that sounds so cheesy, but genuinely, the person I am now is not who I was 5 years ago. Like, my life has totally changed. Like, my outlook on life, the person I am, I'm happier, I'm healthier. I try and be an optimist. I try and just everything about my life has just totally changed. Like, I don't even know how else to describe it, really.
Okay, awesome. So, guys watching on the video now, there are a number of you, and there's a few comments I'm going to read through now. But if you've got any questions you'd like to ask Faye, I've probably covered the majority of what I'm going to ask. I've got a few things I'll pop in there in a minute. So we've got a handful of minutes now to post any questions that you may like on the Facebook page video, which most of you are commenting on now. So things that have already popped on. Jamie says his deadlift is 136. So that means you're there already, doesn't it?
We're at the 420.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure you are. You need to average 140. You're 1.5 kilo off between you.
We'll get that.
Extra half a kilo next. As soon as we're back and doing sessions, well, you'll be fine. You've got your squat rack and your bar. I presume you took a barbell and plates and stuff from the club as well, did you?
Pardon?
I presume you took a barbell and plates and everything from the club as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're coming back after lockdown, you know.
Uh-huh.
So they're coming back after lockdown, you know.
I know.
I feel like I did badly. I brought a bench, those dip bars, a handful of dumbbells, but only up to, I think, 20 kilos, the heaviest dumbbells I've got down here, a TRX, which I've suspended from the ceiling, that I can see above me now, it's got like a plasterboardy base. So although it's tightly attached because it goes through to the screws above, every time I do anything on it where I'm face up, bits of plasterboard drop into my eyes. Really annoying. I should have thought and got a squat rack, but I don't quite know where I'd put it, to be honest.
I have got a mini academy in my conservatory.
Why not? So James at 136. Lee says, yeah, it's a 501 we're going after. Mark Bowers says, oh, wow, thanks, Faye. I was telling my wife about the amazing support and encouragement you give when you name-checked me. Thank you. Nice. Angie Mia says, Faye's my inspiration with how far she has come and also a brilliant coach.
Thank you, Angie.
Leanne says, now this is an interesting one. You were a natural from the start. Would you describe yourself as a natural?
Leanne
Yeah.
says I was the natural from the start.
Yeah.
What, exercise?
Anything and everything. As a member, as a coach.
I don't know.
Because personally, I wouldn't. I sometimes people say similar things about me, and I wouldn't say I'm a natural. I'd say that everything I've ever become good at, I've become good at by starting pretty rubbish at it and practicing myself and working through to becoming good. And
I wasn't good guys when I started. Like, I wasn't good. I say this to members now. Like, one of my favourite pieces of equipment is a TRX, because I remember when I first started, it genuinely took me 6 months to be able to hold my body weight in a TRX with your feet in, like a plank or something. That's honestly, it took me 6 months to be able to do that, and I hated it, and I just saw it. I just felt defeated every single time. But then I saw my tiny little bits of progress with it, and now I love it because I just think every time I use it, it's like, God, remember when you first started. So I was no way a natural at exercise, the exercises we did, but I was very determined to do well in it, really. I'd say I'm a natural with people. I'd say I'm good at having a conversation with people, and I'm genuinely interested in people. So I think that comes across well. Like, I like to get to know people. I like to know their story. I care a lot about people, even strangers. I care a lot about everybody, really. So I think that's natural in terms of like my human connection with people. I'd say that comes naturally.
So a few people commented on cheese. My wife, says I put cheese in everything. Mark says cheese is definitely my weakness. Andy Stokes Owen says mine too, with bacon on Staff's oatcakes.
Good shout.
Lee Shaw says genuine academy legend, Hall of Famer. And then prior to that, a number of people saying hi and waving, etc. when we started. Mark's comment of my eyes looking mad. Gosh, that Mark. I was just looking in a different direction. Let's see if any more questions have come in and comments. Janet says, Faye is a great coach. She is so encouraging and motivating and takes a genuine interest in you, but it's no soft touch. That's a point. I do hear a lot of comments coming out of your sessions, Faye, about, I don't know if sadistic's definitely not the wrong word. It's not the right word, but I don't think you're averse to giving people an extra little nudge, shall we say?
Definitely not. And I think that's because I know what it's like to say to yourself, you can't do this. So I still say that to myself sometimes. You can't do this. You're not good at this. So when I hear people saying that, I'm going to say, you can do this. Like, don't, you can do this. Just adjust this, just adjust that. So I know what it's like to be so doubtful of yourself and to put yourself down. So when I see members doing that, I want to be the person to challenge them on that, really. Like, if they're telling themselves that they can't do it, I want to go, you can do it. So when I see people, thinking, I'm not very good at that, or I'm just going to, take this bit easy, or and fair enough, you have to sometimes, and I'm not saying I wouldn't, but when I see somebody who I know has got that potential, I think, no, you can do this. Don't tell yourself you can't. You can push yourself. You can do this. You can do that. So I'm just encouraging people to.
I think often what, again, human nature does is we give ourselves these definitions of what it is that almost we can't do. And countless times, thousands and thousands of times over the years of coaching, I've had people say to me, I can't do this, I can't do it, whilst they're doing it. They're doing a squat, they're doing a press up, and they're saying, I can't do this. I'm like, but you are doing it now. That's exactly what you're doing. And they've got some definition in their head that they can't do. They can't hit X amount of reps, they can't get to a certain depth, they can't do a certain weight. Yet, but that doesn't mean that they can't do the actual exercise. We just give ourselves these definitions. Press-ups is the prime example. People regularly say I can't do press-ups while they're doing them. I'm like, I get that you're not on your toes, you're not going to full depth, that's fine, that's something we could potentially work to in the future. But what you're doing now is a press-up. You're pressing yourself upwards. You're just doing the version of it that's appropriate for you. Fran, so there's a bit more on Janet's comment. She misses nothing. Would have made a good ward sister. She has taught me to stop saying I can't do that and believe I can far more now. Brilliant. Fran says, love this story, just what I needed to hear to get back to where I was. Leanne says, she was talking about coaching, you and actually from a coaching perspective. Marg says, great to hear your journey, Faye, well done. You cope with the naughty students with humour because you have self-confidence. You see you have self-confidence, Faye. Linda says, fab story, Faye. Kim says, brilliant story and inspirational. Just see if any more comments come on since I've been going through them. Oh, wow, loads more. Kate says, Kate Moore Ryan, that is, she also makes you change weights to challenge yourself appropriately. Andy says, Faye even sneaks a few extra seconds in sets and thinks you don't notice.
What kind of reputation am I building for myself?
A good one. It's exactly the reputation. Mark says, relate to a lot of your story this evening. Thank you for sharing with us. So lots of lovely comments there. So if we hadn't met 5 years ago, or you hadn't discovered the Academy some other way, or what have you, where do you think Faye might be now?
I dread to think. Still really overweight, if not even more overweight. Not very happy. I think I would have had quite a sad outlook on life. I don't even like to think of where I would be, really.
Where do you think Faye will be in another 5 years' time?
Where will I be in another 5 years' time? Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see where I'll be in 5 years' time. Hopefully still coaching. One thing I've learned a bit about this, situation we're in at the moment is I'm trying to get the most out of it, and I'm actually seeing the benefits. So I'm sleeping a lot more. I'm not working as much, so I have a tendency to work a lot. So one thing it's taught me is actually I'd like to get a bit of a better balance in certain aspects of my life. So in 5 years' time, to grow the, whatever it is, the fitness side or whatever you call it, but to do more of this, because this is what I really enjoy and it is a huge part of my life. Don't get me wrong, I love the other stuff that I do as well, but this is where I see my journey going in this, if that makes sense. And then in powerlifting, in 5 years' time, I will be like
200 kilo deadlift. You mentioned that earlier.
More than that in 5 years.
Wow, that's a hell. 140 is a hell of a deadlift. 130 is a hell of a deadlift, but 200. So
in 5 years' time, I genuinely want to be one of the best. Like, I know that sounds really stupid, but
not sound stupid. Sounds awesome.
I want to be one of the best. So. Yeah.
That will be, like, for your category, is that a world record or what is the world record?
In my category, about 270, something like that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, a few people, a few women my age, my weight. Yeah, there's a few around the world up there.
5 years' time, you might be in the next category, though.
No, it won't be. I'll still be in mine.
What is the category up to? Is that one up to 40 then? Is that yours? Right, okay. You might have to wait for whatever it is, 8 years' time or something then. Well, no, you can do both.
No, I'm not really. I'll get it. And I'm excited to see where we'll be in 5 years' time.
Awesome. Right, that was brilliant, Faye. I'm sure people commented on the video there. They got a lot from it. I think it's really powerful hearing anyone's story of their journey, but particularly coaches like yourself, as a reminder that we are just normal, real people who have the same challenges, difficulties, frustrations, insecurities, whatever else as everyone else does. Maybe different things to different degrees, but I don't think of myself as being any different to any of my friends who work in different jobs. And I know plenty of people who are far more successful in some aspects of their life than I am. And just for whatever reason, we've got to a place in our lives where we find the health and fitness side of it not easy, but it's become a habit. It's just kind of the way we live our lives. But that doesn't mean that everything's hunky-dory, rosy, perfect, and easy for us. So I think it's really powerful. And for those that don't know, apart from the first 2 coaches, when we first opened up, every coach at the academy has started their journey as a member. So they've literally been through the exact same process and journey and experience that a new member coming in will go through. They came to the briefing meeting, decided to get started, they did the induction, the coaching day. Most of them did a challenge and then had the experience ongoing then onwards, and decided at some point thereafter that they wanted to continue their journey further as a coach. And I think that's a massive part of continued member successes, because you can essentially say the exact same thing, but who it's coming from and how they perceive that person and how they feel about that person's journey and experiences and all that has a massive part in how much that then impacts that person and they make those changes. So you having been through that journey that we've covered there over the last 70 minutes, I think is a huge help when talking to people in terms of them maybe taking that on board and doing something with it. And hopefully people have gained even more insight to that over the course of this podcast. Let's have a last quick check. There's a couple more comments. I think actually I've seen all them. Let me just refresh it. It did say there's 2 new comments, but in the order, I've read all of them. So thank you for your time, Faye. I appreciate it. We've gone around nearly 75 minutes there.
Louise, thank you very much.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of your evening if you're up to anything. For those watching this later on, or if you want to have a review of it, the audio will be up by tomorrow morning. Now it's all been authorised by iTunes. It's relatively quick to get it online. Next couple of days worth of socials. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m, not 8 p.m, 7 is the GTP live session. It's the public facing one. Tuesday night, I'm considering, I did post it in the group earlier today, expecting there would be a level of interest on it, but there wasn't. I think I'm still going to do it, is a group called Lift the Bar, which is a Fit Pro coaching, mentoring and support group that I paid to be part of. I've started doing learn together events. So Zoom meetings and presentations, much like this one, taken by an expert in a certain field, where members of Lift the Bar, like me, and their clients, like you guys watching and listening to this, come in and listen to that and learn together from it. And this Tuesday's one at 8 p.m, coincidentally enough, is on protecting your mental health through the coronavirus pandemic and lockdown and what have you. So there wasn't much response when I posted it in the group earlier, but I get perhaps it's not something that people would feel that they could comment on. We're going to give it a go anyway. So Tuesday night, we're going to do that, learn long. Worst case scenario, no one will join me, but I'll go on and hopefully pick up some ideas and things I can do to pass on to everyone else. I'm going to move the quiz from Tuesday to Wednesday, because the quiz is always the most popular one. So that will replace the elimination style tournament on Wednesday. And then the rest of the socials I'll announce later in the week. But all that remains is one last thank you for your time, Faye.
No worries.
And I'll see you virtually soon.
You will indeed. Thank you.